Hello everyone. Could you please confirm if you can hear me well and see my screen? All right. Thank you for the confirmation. Just wanted to check with you if you have any questions from yesterday's session or from any of the previous sessions that we have covered so far. All right. So feel free to ask me if you have any queries. So today we'll quickly go through another server configuration, which is Apache server or a HTTP server configuration. So, so a HTTP service or an Apache service, we can also call it as a web server configuration. Okay, so a web service is mainly used in order to host the websites. Okay, or to host the web pages. A web server is being used. There are different types of web servers, I would say, or simply to classify static web pages. So in particular about the web pages, we can have static web pages and dynamic web pages as well. Okay, so an Apache server is the most widely used web server in the world. So you can see the web servers being hosted in the Linux system as well as in Windows system too, but mostly they'll be hosted on the Linux system only. So with respect to web services, today we'll quickly see how to install the server package, and then we'll take a simple example of creating a small web page and then hosting it from the web server. Okay, so HTTP is is the name with which the package starts with. So I'm going to quickly install this package using the normal process that we follow. So in this list, if you see httpd-2.4.6, so that's the main HTTP package. Okay, so HTTP, we can have HTTP service being hosted with and without the secure layer. That means we can have HTTP and HTTPS as well. Okay, so which is HTTPS is all about secure HTTP. That means securely uh, transferring the content across the World Wide Web. So when it comes to HTTPS, though we are not going to uh, cover the topic on configuring HTTPS service, but I'll give you a quick introduction. Okay, so whenever we use you might have observed that a lot of websites, particularly in the banking sector, okay, they make use of HTTPS service. Okay, so this is mainly to ensure that when you are trying to interact, when you open a website that is related to a bank and you are performing some transaction online, okay, so if you use HTTPS, it will ensure that, okay, someone, if you have heard about um, the attacks that usually happen, okay, online, so people who are trying to you know uh, so whatever requests that you are making, they try to jump into your network and try to identify the packets that are being transferred. Okay, they somehow try to hack your system and take control over your account and perform some fraud. So in order to avoid all these kinds of things, so we have HTTPS service in place. So when you have a secure web service, so people, even if they try to steal your packets, they'll not be able to decrypt, because HTTPS, the secure HTTP service, it ensures that the encryption and decryption happens only with the help of valid certificates that are present on both the sides. So when it comes to HTTPS service, we will also be having proper valid certificates in place. Okay, so using these certificates, data will be encrypted and is transferred across the network. So that is the advantage of HTTPS service. Okay, so and the other one is non-HTTP, so which is normally used for the blog sites or any of the other normal sites which are not related to financial transactions, which are not associated with financial transactions. Okay, so we'll see some examples, some basic examples of the HTTP service. So as I've said, HTTP is the name of the package. HTTP-2.3.4, I guess, is the name of the package that has been installed in the system. Alright, these are all the dependent packages. I have started the service and I have enabled the service. Now, other than HTTP service, I would suggest that you install a package called elinks. Okay, so elinks is called as a text-based browser. So whatever browser, Chrome or the Firefox that we use, they are graphical browsers. Okay, elinks is a text-based browser. So I will show you how to make use of elinks as well. So it is installed. Perfect. So once the HTTP service, okay, is installed, and we have started the service. Okay, now as usual, we'll quickly make the changes with respect to firewall. Join is equal to public. Add the port number, which is 80. So with respect to HTTP, I forgot to mention that. So every time we are working on a service, make sure that we make a note of the port number as well. Okay, so port number is also important. Okay, so the port on which the service is running. Okay, and if you remember, there is a command called netstat. I'll show that command. So the moment we run the service, we cross check whether the service is running on that port number or not. Okay, so that port is available, and the HTTPD is running on that port number. And so regarding the HTTPS, I mentioned usually these two come in pair. So HTTP runs on port number 80, that is the default port for HTTP service. Whereas if you take HTTPS service, it runs on port number 443. Just remember, 80 is for HTTP, 443 is for HTTPS. Okay, so usually in interviews you might also get these kind of questions like what is the default port for NFS service or HTTP or DHCP service. Okay, so this is how we verify the port number. This command is also important because so it will be used. So sometimes a service doesn't start because there is a possibility that the port is already being occupied by different service. Okay, then you may not be aware of that specific situation, or from the logs, so you would know that the port is being used by some other service. So in those scenarios, then you have to quickly check which service is running using this particular command. Okay, so netstat-apnt is used in order to check the service that is running on that particular port number. So we have HTTP running here. Alright. So now we have added the firewall rule and we have reloaded the service. So now we'll quickly check whether the service is running or not. So as you can see, we can see the Apache HTTP server test page on the screen. So the moment you see this test page, okay, it indicates that you have successfully installed the Apache service or the web service in your system. Okay, so how I have used it. So this is the format. So currently I have installed this on my local host. You can also use 127.0.0.1. Okay, so it should open the default Apache page. So elinks space http / localhost, or you specify 127.0.0.1. okay, it should open this page for you, elinks space. So this is called as a text-based browser. Okay, and you can see this default page, and if you want to quit, okay, then you have to press Q. It is asking, do you really want to exit? Press enter to exit, or you can okay. So this is the installation process for Apache. Now etc httpd conf httpd.conf. So this is where your Apache configuration file exists. Now in this file, okay, so far we have only been opening the page using localhost or the loopback address, which is 127.0.0.1, right? But if you want, we can also bind the IP address of the system inside the configuration file. That means we can define that. So this is the IP address of the system inside the configuration file, so that we can directly use the IP address also in order to open the default web page in the system. Okay, so in order to use that, so one second. So these are called as directives inside the Apache configuration file. Okay, so here if you see, there is this directive called as listen space 80. So the default, it is listening on port number 80, and if you want to bind the IP address, what you can do is you can simply remove this comment and comment this line, and in this line mention the IP address of the system. So with that, you can directly hit the IP address of the system. Okay. The next important part here is the location var www html. So this page var www is the location where all the content that is related to a web server is located. Okay, so inside var www, here you can see there are two folders. One is CGI bin, another one is HTML. Okay, all the HTML pages that you want to host from your web server are copied into this directory. So this is the default directory. If we want, we can also create similar directories in the system, and we can create things inside those directories as well. Okay, so usually it is the index.html page that is copied to this directory, and that page will be displayed when we start the HTTP service. Okay, and there is another directory called cgi-bin. So when I explained about HTTP service, I said that we can have two different types of pages: static pages and dynamic pages that can be displayed using the HTTP service. So static pages means the plain text, okay, that can be displayed, and dynamic pages means you can have CGI scripts, or you can have scripts like Perl script or the JavaScript, okay, or you can also have all these different, these are called as dynamic languages. So what they help you to do is you can have some logic placed inside these scripts. Okay, so when you try to open a web page, so these scripts are going to get executed, and they generate the content after executing the script, and this content will be displayed on the screen. The most simplest example, say would be like, say you are trying to display uh, date on your web page. Okay, so there will be a function that will be running as a part of the script that generates the latest date, and it will be displayed on the screen. Okay, so this is how uh, the content will be dynamically generated and displayed on the screen. For that we use CGI or JavaScript, etc. So all these scripts would go into that particular folder. So usually when you take an Apache service, this the content folder. So here all this information will be categorized and copied to the individual folders, and when loading a particular page, so the content will be picked up from the corresponding folder of these pages. Okay, now we will copy a simple uh, file. We'll create it. You can create any kind of uh, text file. You can copy it to this location, and we can start it. So I will create index.html. Okay, and here I would simply put some text stating starting this web page. Okay, So here what I did is by default the web service will pick the welcome page that is available as a part of the installation. So this welcome page is located in this particular folder. Okay, so I have tried to move the welcome page in the previous, you see here. So I moved it from this location so that uh, the system will look at the next location, which is the default directory under var ww. Okay, so now it has picked up, it has opened that particular folder and it has displayed that page for us. Okay, so that's how we display. Now if we bind the IP address for this web service, what we can do is we can connect from a different system and we can directly hit the IP address of the web page and we can open this page in a different system altogether. Okay, now similarly uh, we can also host multiple multiple websites from a single system. That means we can say, for example, we can name it as www.xyz.com for this website. Okay, so whatever IP address that we are trying to hit, if you bind, if you have a name, so anyhow by the end of the day it's a system. So if you uh, provide a fully qualified domain name for this IP address, so how it happens is this IP address is linked to this particular uh, website name. So 192.168.1. So say for example this is 125 and you have binded it to a fully qualified domain name which is called as www.xyz.com. So if you hit xyz.com, it will further it is linked to the IP address which will open that web page for you. Okay, so similarly this linking which is there, we can do it in multiple ways. One is IP based, another one is another one is host based. That means the first one which is there, the IP based part is where what we do is uh, usually you will have um, the network adapter for which we will be assigning an IP address. In case we have two adapters available, we can assign two IP addresses. Okay, and both these IP addresses can have two different HTML contents made available, and we can host both the websites, okay, from the same system itself. Okay, so this is one method. So another method is where we can simply define two different websites, okay, and we can also host them from the same system. So we'll simply take an example of hosting or creating one of the virtual host using the web service. In order to create that, we have to open the HTTPD configuration file. Okay, and we already have this. You would have the format available here. So just like the other service man page that we have verified, okay, even the HTTP service configuration file is also, the default format is also present in this location. Just make a note of it. It would be useful for reference. Okay, so vi, so it's the same config file. Okay, go to the bottom of the file, and there we will add so some of the additional details that we have to provide are document root. So that's the folder where we will keep the HTML pages. It's the new folder structure that we have to create. Okay. So these are basically the details that are associated with the site that we are creating. Okay. So we provide the path where the log files should be copied to. So this is how we create the directive for the site that we are hosting. Similarly, so here what we do is, once this is done, so under var ww you create a directory called as declared. Okay, so we create a directory called saranvm.com/public_html. Similarly, if you create another website, okay, for example saranvmnew.com, so you create another website structure, folder structure over there, and we copy the index.html to this location. Similarly, to both the locations. Okay, and here you create another directive. Okay, for the new site that you have created, and then change the corresponding arguments accordingly. And then we restart the service and then try to test these pages, okay, from the from the client system. and then check the corresponding web pages whether they are being displayed properly or not. Okay, so now will quickly test the example that we have created. We can use this command called httpd space -t in order to test whether the changes have been properly made or not inside the configuration file. And here it says that there is an error on line number 362. Just let me check what the error is. Give me a second. Okay, so here I have just kept all these values inside the quotes, and custom log takes this extra argument called combines. Okay, so once this is done, we can do httpd-t. So it is important that we verify the syntax before restarting the service. So every time you make changes inside the HTTP configuration file, we typically make these changes and then test whether the syntax is right or not. Okay, and with HTTP we have let me open the presentation. So even for the HTTP service, we have to ensure that we change the SLNX context of the new folders that we create. Okay, so by default, so this particular location, if you check, okay, so here inside so these are like different, the contexts are different between the default folders and the new folders that we have created in the system. So similarly, the way we have updated the context yesterday, okay, so we are going to change the context of these new folders, okay, so that the HTTP service or the SC Linux will not block you from loading the pages from the non-default directories. So the way SC Linux works is it only considers the default directories like var www html. So if in case you create any new structures, okay, the SLNX context is not applicable for those newly created directories. Okay, so in such cases we have to change the context of those directories. We have to change the context of those directories, and then we have to restart the service in order to load the pages from those new folders that we have created. Okay, so here, so for these two new directories that I have created, so I need to change the context. Just 1 second. Okay, maybe let me walk you through this slide first. So in this example, the new directory that has been created is /web. So that is the directory that has been created. So in this directory, what we are doing is we are going to copy the web pages to this particular directory. Okay, so we need to change the context, as you can see here. So when we do ls-z, so we can see that the context is different for /web. So the way we have to change it is we have to run the command called scmanage. So you have both the commands here, scmanage fcontext -a-t, and then we have this is the SC Linux variable for the corresponding service. So every service will have a bunch of parameters or kind of variables present. Okay, we have to, these are called as booleans in SC Linux language. We have to change, we have to, booleans are like, they have values like 0 and 1, okay, enable and disable. So we need to turn these booleans, we have to enable them, and then we have to apply these booleans for the corresponding service. So here what we are doing, we are using scmanage command, scmanage space fcontext -a-d. This is applicable for the folder web and also all the subfolders. If you remember the concept of regular expressions that we have seen before, the same regular expressions are being applied here. Okay, /web/.star means for all the folders files which are present under the web directory. Okay, and then we use the restore con command to restore the context of the /web folders. Once that is done, you can hit the URL again and you can verify the contents of that particular directory. So this is how we can add new uh, folders. We can create new folders and we can add the contents to the new folder as well. Okay. Do you have any questions on how we have implemented this so far? Okay. Now we will proceed with another topic, so for which I will quickly give an introduction today, and we will proceed with the configuration in tomorrow's class. So the topic is about the DNS service, which is called as a domain name service, or it is also called as a name server. Okay, so when it comes to name server, so the first thing that comes into your mind is the file called etc resolve.conf. Okay, so this is where the local name server is present, to which all our requests are routed, right? So if you look at this particular slide, you will have some understanding of the role that the DNS server plays. Okay, so the domain name server or the DNS server, it mainly helps to translate the host names to IP addresses and vice versa. Also the IP addresses to the host names. Okay, so this concept began, okay, so in the early stages where uh, IP addresses are allocated to individual hosts, okay, but it is rather very difficult to remember the IP addresses. So right, so the convention of having host names or web names is much easier. It is easier to remember google.com, rediff.com or some gmail.com rather than remembering the numbers. So that's why we have the concept of uh, names that are being linked to the IP addresses, and we need a service that helps us in mapping these names to the corresponding IP addresses. Okay, so that service which does the job is called as a DNS service or a domain name service. Okay, a DNS server, all right, though I'm talking like a single server, but these DNS servers are spread across the globe. Okay, every person who is using internet is getting it from the nearest service provider. This service provider maintains a DNS service. Okay, like that every service provider will maintain a DNS service, and these DNS servers in turn are connected to another DNS server, or you can consider it as a master DNS server. Okay, so these DNS servers are distributed worldwide. You can consider a DNS service as a distributed database. Okay, a distributed database is a database that is available across the globe. So it is like this, we have multiple databases and data is spread across all these databases, and together it is called as a distributed database. Okay, so this DNS service, this DNS is also called as a distributed database because the information is spread across. DNS services have a hierarchy like a primary DNS server and a secondary DNS server, or you can consider it like a master DNS service and a slave DNS service. So you can imagine the way these DNS servers are distributed across the globe is similar to a file system, a Linux file system. We have a tree structure. Similarly, the DNS servers are distributed in the form of a tree structure. Okay, every DNS server can have a parent DNS server and a child DNS server. So the parent is like the master, the DNS server which is above the hierarchy, which is at a higher level. Okay, it is its master, and the DNS server which is below the hierarchy is it will be like the slave. Okay, so every DNS server acts both as a master as well as a slave. So it will be master to the DNS servers which are below its hierarchy, and it will act as a slave to the DNS server which is above the hierarchy. Now what is master and slave? So whenever we are sending requests, okay, so that means you are typing www dot, sorry, so you are typing www dot some website xyz.com. Okay, now how do you know where this website is located? How do you get to see the corresponding web page on your system when you type the web page? Now we have seen the web service, right? So we have hosted a web service on our system. Imagine that I have purchased one domain. Okay, so you might have heard about the sites like godaddy.com where they provide domains for you. Okay, so these DNS servers which are there, they are uh, they basically help you in order to do the mappings. Now when you take the mappings with IP address and the corresponding host name, host names will have a proper domain extension. They'll be either a .com, .in, .co.uk, like that. We have a lot of domains which are at a country level, but anyone is free to purchase the domain and make use of it for his website. Okay, so these websites, they basically help you to purchase these sites. They provide the domains for you, so you can purchase a domain. Okay, and so that is called as a publicly available domain, and then you can have an Apache or HTTP server configuration. You can configure it, and then you can make use of the publicly available domain. Okay, so with a public IP address and a public domain, you can host your website. Now you are going to host your website on your server which is located locally, but if you are making it public, any person should be able to access your website. So a person who is located on the other side of the globe can access your website. So how is he able to reach? How is his request reaching your system, and it is taking the contents of your web page? So that is mainly because of the DNS service. Clear? So the website can be hosted anywhere on the globe, but our request will be routed to that particular web server, and a DNS server basically helps us in order to route our request. Okay, so how DNS server does this job is when we send a request. Okay, so it will first look up for that particular server in the local DNS available. So if a local DNS server is not available, it will go to the ISP service provider's DNS, okay, and it will look for the mapping in the DNS cache. If it is not available, then that DNS server will route your request to another DNS server which is one level higher in the hierarchy, to its master. Okay, so there is a possibility that this information is present in the master. Okay, so that way, if the information is not present, it that request will keep routing to the next higher level. Okay, so what happens is, so say for example, if you have a domain of .in, okay, it will keep routing this to the top level DNS server, which would eventually have this particular information, or it will route it further to the DNS server where your actual .in website is hosted. Okay, and while retrieving this web page, every DNS server, what they do is, if necessary, they will maintain a copy of this information in their local cache, so that whenever a new request comes, they'll try to immediately serve those requests. Now, the reason why the moment you type google.com, the google.com web page is displayed immediately, because since we use it number of times, so that request will be stored and the corresponding HTML page will be stored in the local cache of the nearest DNS service. So that is how it would help us in order to quickly display the site. Okay. So similarly, I mean, this is the main functionality of DNS service, and then we have some categories of DNS services. Okay, like a caching only DNS service. Okay, and a master service, and there are also called as the secondary DNS servers, which are mainly used just to forward your queries to other DNS servers. Okay, and so these slave DNS servers, they try to remain in sync with the master DNS services. So this is a very broad, uh, a very big concept about the DNS services. Okay, so an understanding of the DNS service is very important. We will go through a simple example of how to configure the DNS service in the next class. Okay, so for this we will use, there are different DNS service providing packages. Okay, so previously it was the bind package that we use it to configure. Okay, Berkeley Internet Name Domain bind is the package that we use. Now we will, with the latest RHEL 7 certification, Red Hat is suggesting another package called as Unbound. Okay, so we'll use Unbound package and try to configure a simple DNS service uh, as necessary for the certification exam. Okay, so we'll go through the configuration part tomorrow. So with that, uh, so that's pretty much that I wanted to cover today. Do you have any questions from what we have covered so far? All right. So we'll continue tomorrow's session with the DNS server configuration. All right. So let me know if you have any queries. And after DNS server configuration, we will also review some of the questions and some of the interview questions regarding all these server configurations that we have covered. Okay, so see you in tomorrow's class. Have a good day. Bye.